This is, this is Ann V. Brady, and I will be reading an excerpt from my book, A New Beginning, the story of my adoption, life, and service, illustrated by Eric C. Brady. Ed wanted to look into getting a dog, preferably a beagle. He said that having a beagle pup will allow the pup and their child to grow up together, and that beagles were fierce protectors of the family. I agreed. I didn't know much about beagles, but I've always had dogs. Ed found a breeder that specialized in beagles. Ed went to visit him while I was working. Ed found a cute beagle who was the runt of the litter. We had to wait until he was 6 weeks old before we could bring him home. The breeder gave Ed a discount because he picked the runt of the litter. The breeder assured Ed that his parents were blue ribbon rabbit hunting dogs. He offered Ed the dog's papers if he wanted to pay more for the dog. Ed declined as the dog was to be a pet. When Ed finally brought our beagle home, it was exciting. At night, we kept him in the bathroom of the trailer. We papered the bathroom floor with newspaper. We put his bed in the bathroom and his water bowl and food dish. The bathroom door was closed at night. Dog was allowed to roam the trailer during the day. First couple of nights were rough. Dog would whine and howl, keeping me up. I finally decided that the dog was lonely because he didn't have his brothers and sisters around to keep him company. So I took the hairiest Muppet, Cookie Monster, and put it into bed with the dog. Now I could sleep and get up to go to work on time. Ed finally thought of a name for our dog. He was watching wrestling on TV one Sunday, and when a wrestler called Moondog Mayne came on, the dog proceeded to howl with the wrestler. So Ed named the dog Eminem, aka Moondog Mayne, after the wrestler. Below is a picture of Eminem as a puppy, and he's in the trailer park yard, and he's on dirt, and there's cinder blocks where our trailer, leading up to our trailer. The next picture is Ed and Eminem. They're asleep on the couch with a blanket over them, Ed's head on a white pillow. Ed's wearing a white t-shirt, and he's got his arms around Eminem, and they're both taking a nap on the couch. Ed and I had to leave Eminem with Brad and Joyce when I took leave for a week. Brad and Joyce had two adult dogs, a German Shepherd and a Great Dane. when we when we came back, they had only one problem with Eminem. They noticed that the dog food was being eaten faster than usual. They finally found the reason: Eminem. It seems that Eminem had found the sack of dog food under the sink. He also found a hole in the bag. He was going under the sink and snacking on the dog food whenever he could. We apologize for Eminem's antics. Excuse me. There, that's better. When I when I reached 5 months pregnant, we let both sets of parents in on the good news. Donna and Anita were thrilled. When I called my mom and told her, she said, "Many's a slip betwixt the cup and the lip." I was upset because I got the feeling that she didn't want us to have a child. Thinking back on it now, maybe she was thinking about her past miscarriages. Still, I had hoped that she would be happy for us. Ed and I bought some things for the baby. There was a fence beside our trailer where we kept Eminem when it wasn't too cold out. Neighbors of ours decided one night to throw their dog out of their trailer when it was freezing cold outside. We were in our trailer and heard a dog barking and whining. Ed went outside and found the animal, small brown dog, huddling in the dirt in 4-degree Fahrenheit weather. Ed brought the dog inside to keep it warm. Now we had two dogs. Eminem wasn't thrilled with sharing his domain with another dog. One night, Bryce was going out to a bar, and we talked to him before we left to go out to dinner. We had a great time enjoying getting out of the trailer. About 2 or 3 in the morning, Ed was awakened by a bright light outside our trailer. He saw it through a glass door by our bed. Ed opened the door and woke me up. He said that Bryce's trailer was on fire. He told me to call 911 and get the fire department out here. He got dressed and ran to Bryce's trailer to see if there was anything he could do to save Bryce and his dog. I called 911 and they put me on hold. I was very upset about it. I was near tears the longer I was on hold. When Ed came back inside the trailer, I told him I was on hold. He told me he couldn't do anything, so he grabbed the phone. I got dressed and Ed told me to put the dogs outside in the fenced yard. We put them outside. I put them outside. Ed was afraid that the fire might spread to our trailer. Clothes I had put out on the clothesline the day before were either burned or melted. Ed finally got 911 to call the fire department. Later, as we were waiting for the fire department, I remembered that Bryce was Catholic. So I called the chaplain on call on Fort Gordon base to give last rites to Bryce. The priest came out. He was an older priest. When the firemen put the fire out and brought Bryce out, it was horrible. You could see the skin peeled back off his white skull. It really upset the priest. We thought the priest was going to have a heart attack. The priest performed the last rites on Bryce, and the ambulance took Bryce away. We asked the firemen if they had seen a small dog in the trailer. Unfortunately, they hadn't. The fire inspector came out to investigate the fire. Eventually, they found the dog. The dog had crawled into the closet and buried himself under some clothes and blankets in there. The dog had also died. His family informed us and Brad and Joyce when they were having the funeral so we could all attend. The funeral was in Alabama. Ed drove us all out to the funeral. We hit a patch of black ice while driving. We weren't going very fast. Ed drove into the slide and was able to get the car under control. We gave the family our condolences. Bryce's wife showed up at the funeral and started to cry and wail. She was dressed in bright, colorful leggings and a skimpy blouse. Everyone was surprised to see her at the funeral. After several months, they determined Bryce's death was an accident. He had placed an aluminum pot with food on the stove and started to heat the food. He went back into his bedroom and fell asleep. The stove melted the pot, and that's how the fire started. After the trail fire, Ed and I talked about moving. We were afraid of another fire after seeing how fast Bryce's trailer burned down. We found a place in Shady Grove, Augusta. It was a duplex for rent in a subdivision. We moved in as soon as we could. Brad and Joyce also decided to move. They offered to take the dog we had taken in. They said they had found a place in Harlem, Georgia, with lots of land. We gave them the little dog. While I was pregnant, we still drove road rallies or ran checkpoints. Everyone would have to take turns riding a road rally. Underneath is a picture of me in a green jacket, and I'm visibly pregnant. I'm standing by our car, which was the Mazda 606, a white car, and it's parked on the side of the road, and it's a checkpoint in a road rally, and you can see the road. Ed and I rode several road rallies. We would take different routes around the area and get a general idea of a safe route, taking notes. Then we would test the route for safety, easy to figure out what landmarks to use. We didn't want to make it too easy or so hard that people got easily lost. Then we would write the instructions. 1. Starting point, Joe's Pizzeria on Standard Street. Starting time, 7 p.m. 2. Right turn. 3. Left turn at second light. We also had an endpoint, usually a pizza place, where we handed out trophies. Some roads were unpaved roads. We would do a final run of our route for the rally to hone the route and look for errors and possible problems. We would then ask another couple who were going to also run checkpoints to run the rally route and let us know if we had problems or needed to make changes. At work, I was usually working in hematology. I mostly performed PT and APTT tests. I became the go-to person for bleeding time tests. I had to puncture the arm to start the 2 punctures bleeding. I had to start the stopwatch as soon as the bleeding started. I had to have a small filter paper to absorb the blood without touching the punctures. I then had to stop the stopwatch as soon as the puncture stopped bleeding. That gave us how long it took for the patient to stop bleeding. This test was performed to see if a patient was a hemophiliac. The only time I had a problem was when they asked me to do a bleeding time on a 5-year-old boy. He kept wiping the blood away when he saw it. We had explained that he had to stay still and not touch his arm. After 3 attempts, I had to give up. I talked to my supervisor, and they told the patient's father to talk to his physician. We informed the physician that the test couldn't be performed and why. I rotated between hematology and the phlebotomy room. I had a PFC working alongside me. He was about 18 years old. He once told me that he convinced a psychiatrist that his overbite damaged his self-image and he needed to have his jaw broken to correct it. He bragged he did this so he could take convalescent leave to go home to see his girl. Another time he told me that the Bible said all Catholics are going to hell. I explained to him that it wasn't possible for that to be in the Bible. I explained that at the time the Bible was written, there was no such thing as Catholics, only Christians existed. He checked with our desk sergeant, who told him that I was correct. He then told him theologians assume that the harlot in Revelations in the Bible means a Catholic church. I know because the sergeant came and told me this. We moved to our new duplex in Shady Grove Court. It had a kitchen, dining room, living room, 2 bedrooms, and a bathroom. Ed bought a doghouse for Eminem. Eminem hated the doghouse. Ed showed the doghouse to Eminem, and the dog wouldn't enter it. Ed lifted the roof off the doghouse and placed Eminem inside the doghouse. Eminem ran out of the doghouse immediately. Ed bought a chain to attach to Eminem while outside so he wouldn't run away. Eminem stayed outside while we both worked and slept in the house with us at night. In fact, Eminem slept at the bottom of our bed at night. We eventually decided to buy a new car. Ed told me about a Mazda 66 that was being sold at the dealership where he worked. I agreed, but told Ed that I wanted an automatic and not a stick shift. I half jokingly told Ed if he bought another stick shift, he would be sleeping in the doghouse with Eminem. Weird thing is that Ed almost brought home the wrong car for a test drive. Salesman threw Ed the wrong keys. Ed saw immediately that it was the wrong car. He returned to the salesman and asked him if he was trying to get him into trouble with his wife. Ed got the correct keys. Ed and I drove around that weekend, and the next Monday, Ed bought the car. When I went to have an ultrasound done, Ed went with me. I went to refill a prescription for prenatal vitamins. Now I turned in the bottle with my name on the bottle for the refill. When I picked up the vitamins, it had Ed's name on the bottle of vitamins. I was in my military uniform. I pointed out to the SP that the prescription had my husband's name on it. He looked at me and said, "Are you active duty?" I told him yes. He then proceeded to tell me that I had filled out the card for who was active duty and who was dependent wrong. I told him I had filled it out correctly and that they had gotten it wrong. The SP fixed it. I told Ed about his prescription for 100 prenatal vitamins. We had a good laugh about it. I twisted my left knee again. I went to orthopedics and I was seen by a doctor who was a resident. He decided I needed a cast in my leg. He gave me an appointment with orthopedic cast section to have the cast removed in 3 weeks. When I went for my appointment, the cast technician asked me what I was doing there. I told him I had an appointment to remove my cast. I showed him my appointment slip. The resident had rotated out and he had never scheduled in an appointment. The orthopedic tech removed my cast anyway. The ultrasound technician told us he couldn't tell for sure whether it was a boy or a girl for sure. He did say that he thought it might be a girl because of the fast heart rate. Ed and I started decorating our extra bedroom for the baby. We had a crib, bassinet, and maybe bathtub for the sink. We were excited. We started thinking of babies' names. Ed insisted that we pick boys' names, for he was sure that it was a boy. I asked him about girls' names, and he told me it would be a boy. I said, "What if it's a girl?" He said, "We'll name her when she's born." April 16th, I went into labor. The contractions weren't close together yet. I was feeling slight kicks from the baby. Later, the kicks stopped, and I was concerned. I got my stethoscope to listen to the baby's heartbeat. The stethoscope was one I had bought when I was a nursing student. I heard a strong heartbeat, which made me feel better. The next morning, the contractions were closer together, so we went to the DDE Army Medical Center. Once we went up to labor and delivery, they put me into a room and placed a fetal monitor on my belly. There was no heartbeat, no sound at all. I started crying as the nurse told me not to worry. She told me that it didn't mean anything. She went to get the doctor. They rushed me into delivery. They had sedated me, but Ed told me later the doctor wanted to do a C-section because he wanted to leave to go to an event. Ed said the nurse, he described as a no-nonsense nurse who wouldn't be pushed around, told the doctor that she wasn't going to have him destroy my chances of having more children. She told the doctor he was going to deliver the baby the natural way. Our daughter was stillborn April 17th, 1982. Later, when I was back in a room, I told Ed that I wanted to see my baby. I told Ed, I know our daughter is dead, but I have to see her for myself to be sure. Ed asked I be given a sedative before I saw our daughter. They gave me a tranquilizer. They brought in our daughter. She looked so beautiful and perfect. She had dark hair, and she had all her fingers and toes. Ed and I named her Angela Kathleen Brady. I asked for a priest to come and baptize her. I knew that the Catholic Church had changed their stance on baptizing babies. The Catholic Church no longer believed that if a baby died and wasn't baptized, that they wouldn't go to heaven but go to limbo. The chaplain came, and instead of baptizing her, he blessed our daughter and prayed for her and us. I was moved to a room on another ward. A Spec 4 came in and asked me if I was there to have a D&C. I told him I didn't know, that I had just had a stillbirth. Ed and I found out that the military wouldn't pay for our daughter's funeral, but would ship her body anywhere we wanted for free. Ed and I discussed what to do. I didn't want to bury her in Georgia because I wasn't sure we would ever go back to Georgia to live. I wasn't about to send her to my parents or his parents. We couldn't afford to bury her. We thought long and hard and decided to donate her body to science. We wanted to find out why she died. Also, we thought it could help doctors prevent something like this from happening to other women. My doctor told me that he wanted me to stay in the hospital for 2 weeks. I told him I wanted to go home. He told me if I stayed in the hospital, he would give me 6 weeks leave. But if I left the hospital, I would only get 4 weeks of leave because I didn't have a baby to take care of. I decided to leave the hospital. I was discharged and Ed took me home. My parents flew from New York to help Ed with me. Ed went to pick up my parents from the airport. My mom was a big help. It surprised me when my mom confided in me when we were alone that she was surprised that Ed stayed with me. I told my mom that we love each other and we were both upset about the loss of our daughter. I also told her that the two of us would get through it together. That was when my mom did a complete turnaround and started liking Ed. It was a big help to Ed and me to have my parents there, especially my mom. Ed had kept the door to the room we had set up for the baby closed. I went to appointments with my doctor and he gave me a prescription to dry up my milk so I wouldn't leak. My parents left after a week. I was feeling better and getting around pretty good. Whenever we drove to the store or someplace else, we would listen to the radio. We listened to a rock and roll station. They started playing this song called I've Never Been to Me. I liked the music, but I never listened to the words. One day I actually listened to the words. I wish I hadn't. The song to this day can bring me to tears. Every time I hear the song, it reminds me of my daughter's stillbirth. After my parents left, I told Ed what my mom said. Ed said, "Why would she think I would leave?" I told him, "She's just thought that because there was no baby that you'd just go." He asked me where was I supposed to go. My mom didn't seem to understand that Ed and I loved each other and we were also friends. Ed and I shared our past, our thoughts, and feelings. We also liked each other. And that is all for right now. And I hope everybody has a nice weekend.